Nneka had never felt fear like the one that came from the west wing of Obina's mansion. From the first night she stepped into her new home, that hallway had seemed different, darker, colder, almost alive. Obina had warned her countless times, Nneka, never enter that room. I mean it, never. That room is dangerous. You will regret it if you do. Nneka had nodded, smiling politely. She wanted to obey him. She loved Obina. He was rich, handsome, and charming. The mansion was beautiful. Tall white walls, polished marble floors, chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Everything about him screamed power and wealth. But the west wing and the locked door at its end, something about it drew her attention no matter how hard she tried to ignore it. It was the day after their wedding. Nneka had woken up in the master bedroom, sunlight streaming through the curtains. Obina entered, carrying 2 cups of freshly brewed zobo. He handed her one, sat beside her on the velvet sofa, and studied her face with a serious expression. I need to tell you something important, Nneka. This house has many secrets. Secrets I have lived with, and some you must never touch. The room at the west wing, it is not for anyone. Not for me, not for you, not for anyone. Nneka tried to nod, but a small part of her curiosity stirred. Why? She asked softly. Obina's eyes darkened. Because it holds the dead women I married before you. 5 of them. Their bodies are in that room. You must not enter, not even a peek. If you do, you cannot imagine the danger. Nneka swallowed hard. 5 dead wives. She forced a polite smile. I understand, she said. Obina exhaled slowly. Relief softened his face, but the shadow in his eyes did not disappear. I love you, Nneka. That room, it has a curse. Anyone who enters, I have been warned, either dies or loses their mind forever. I cannot protect you if you go in there. Nneka nodded. She promised herself she would obey. She really did, at least for a few days. The first week in the mansion was strange. Nneka explored the house, fascinated by its beauty. She walked through the gardens, past the fountains, and admired the rooms filled with paintings, expensive furniture, and antique decorations. Everywhere she went, the staff were polite but distant. They moved quietly, as though afraid to make a sound. But the west wing door called to her. Every time she passed the hallway, her eyes were drawn to it. It was solid wood, polished dark brown, with an ornate lock that gleamed even in dim light. She told herself it was wrong to be curious, that she would obey Obina. But curiosity is a quiet thief, and Nneka's mind could not stop thinking about the room. It was the evening Obina had left for a business trip. The house was silent. Nneka wandered the halls, carrying a glass of zobo. She passed the west wing door, and her pulse quickened. Something inside her whispered, just look, just a peek. She shook her head. No, she should not. But her hand moved almost of its own accord, tracing the edge of the door. She noticed the key Obina had left on the wall near the hallway. Her fingers brushed it, cold and smooth. She tried to stop herself. Don't do it, she told herself. It's forbidden. But the curiosity, the silent pull of the room was stronger than her fear. She took the key and slid it into the lock. The door opened easily, almost welcoming her. Heart pounding, she stepped inside. The room was dark, lit by a single candle on a small table. The air was thick, old and cold, smelling faintly of decay and lilies. The walls were lined with old books, jars and strange objects, but it was the center of the room that made her freeze. 5 beds, arranged neatly in a row. On each bed lay a woman. Their faces were pale, their eyes closed, their lips still. Nneka's breath caught. She knew instantly. These were Obina's wives, dead. The photographs she had seen in the study were now fleshless, lifeless reality. She could not scream. Her throat went dry. Her legs trembled. Her hands shook as if frozen in place. 5 dead women. And she had come too close to their secret. Panic surged through her. She turned to run, grabbing her bag. She did not look back. The candle fell to the floor and went out, plunging the room into darkness. The air felt heavy, almost alive, pressing down on her. She ran down the hall, past the chandeliers, past the gardens, and out into the night. Her heart was pounding so fast she thought she would collapse. Nneka did not stop until she reached the main road, her hands on her knees, gasping for air. She had survived, but she had seen the forbidden room. She had seen the dead wives. She had opened a door that should never have been touched. The price had begun. When Obinna returned days later, he was not the man she had married. His eyes were haunted, moving rapidly, scanning corners as if seeing ghosts everywhere. He muttered to himself, pacing the halls. He said, "Someone went in. Someone entered. Now it will never end," his voice trembling. Nneka tried to explain, but he would not listen. Madness had already begun to consume him. He screamed, he laughed, he cried, and sometimes he would shake uncontrollably at shadows. The native doctor, who had warned Obinna years before, had said one thing clearly: the day someone enters that room, they will either die or run mad for the rest of their life. There's no cure. Now Obinna was proof. The mansion, once full of light and life, was now dark and heavy. Fear and silence filled every corner. Nneka had survived, but she knew the curse of the room had begun its work. She could feel it pressing on the mansion, pressing on Obinna, pressing on her. Nneka stayed awake that night, sitting in the garden under the moonlight, thinking of the 5 dead wives, thinking of Obinna's trembling form, and thinking of the room she should never have entered. She had survived physically, but her mind was filled with images she could not forget. The candlelight flickered from inside the house, and for a moment, she could swear she saw the pale faces watching her through the windows. She realized something then. Some doors should never be opened. Some secrets should remain buried. And she had broken that rule. The price had begun. The mansion was silent again, but not peaceful. It was waiting. Obinna would never be the same. The 5 dead wives would remain in their beds. And Nneka, she had escaped, but she had not escaped the fear. The night was long, and the mansion shadows moved as if alive. The forbidden room had been opened. The curse had started. And this was only the beginning.
Obinna's laughter had changed. It was no longer the strong, confident laugh of a man in control. Now it was broken, uneven, echoing through the halls like shattered glass. Nneka could hear it from the garden, even when the wind was still. She knew, without doubt, that he had begun his descent into madness. The mansion, once vibrant and full of life, now felt cold and heavy. Shadows lingered longer than they should. Doors that were always locked opened slowly by themselves. The wind whispered through the hallways even when the windows were shut. And always, that west wing door loomed at the end of the corridor, a dark reminder of what had been disturbed. Obinna roamed the mansion at night, talking to himself, muttering the names of his late wives. "Nneka, they are here. They know," he whispered one night, pacing the lounge, his eyes wide and unblinking. Nneka could see the fear in his face, the terror that had taken root in his mind. The man she had married was gone, replaced by a stranger haunted by shadows and whispers. She tried to speak to him, to comfort him, but he would not hear. Every mention of the forbidden room, even her silence, seemed to fuel his madness. One evening, Nneka found him crouched in the middle of the hall, hands clutching his head. "I hear them, always, calling my name," he muttered, rocking violently. "They are alive, they are watching me, I cannot escape." Nneka's heart pounded. "Obinna, it's okay, you are safe, they cannot hurt you now." "They are alive," he shouted, leaping to his feet. His eyes darted to the corners of the room, searching for ghosts only he could see. "Every night they are here, in the mirrors, in the shadows, watching, waiting." Nneka backed away, shaking. She had survived the room. She had seen the dead wives, and the memory haunted her too. But Obinna, he had gone too far. The curse was stronger than she had imagined. Days turned to nights without difference. Obinna no longer ate properly. He wandered the mansion endlessly, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, sometimes screaming at shadows. The servants whispered among themselves, afraid to enter the west wing. Even the dogs refused to sleep near the hallways. Nneka tried to call the native doctor again, hoping for a solution, but the doctor was unreachable. Rumors said he had moved far away, unwilling to deal with a curse that could not be undone. Nneka realized she was alone with a man whose mind was trapped in terror and a house filled with whispers and shadows. One night, she decided to face the west wing again. She had to understand what she had unleashed. Lighting candles, she approached the forbidden door, her hands trembling. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, but she needed answers. Obinna appeared behind her, whispering incoherently, "No, don't, they'll take you." His voice cracked as he lunged at the door, trying to block her path. Nneka held his wrists, forcing him back. "Obinna, we have to face this. We cannot let it destroy us completely." Inside the room was as she had left it. Dark, cold, and still. The 5 beds stood in perfect order, each holding a pale, lifeless figure. But this time, Nneka could feel the air thicken. It pressed against her chest like an invisible hand. The candlelight flickered, casting strange, writhing shadows across the walls. Obinna fell to his knees, whispering, "They are alive, they are alive." His hands trembled violently. Nneka's own heart raced, but she stepped forward. "I am sorry," she said softly. "I opened this room. I disturbed you. Please forgive me. Please leave him alone." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then a low hum filled the air. The shadows moved. She could feel the spirits of the 5 women watching, judging. They did not speak, but their presence was heavy, oppressive, and terrifying. Obinna screamed then, clawing at the floor. His madness reached a new peak. "I warned them. I told them not to enter. I told them." His voice broke, echoing through the mansion. Now, they will never leave me alone." Nneka realized fully that there was no escape for Obinna. The curse had claimed him. He would never be normal again. The mansion itself seemed alive with the spirit's presence, whispering to him, tormenting him endlessly. She had survived the room. She had run for her life once, but now she saw clearly that survival came with a price. The dead would not rest, Obinna would not rest, and the mansion itself had become a cage of fear. That night, Nneka stayed in the guest room, candlelight flickering. Every creak, every whisper made her jump. Obinna wandered the halls, muttering and screaming, and she could hear the shadows moving in the corners of her eyes. The curse had begun its relentless work. And then came a scream that froze her blood. Not Obinna's, not hers, but a low, chilling moan that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Nneka knew then that these 5 women's spirits were no longer confined to their beds. The room's power had begun to seep into the mansion. Obinna ran past her, clutching his head, screaming names she had never heard. "They are everywhere. They are in the walls, in the mirrors. They know what I did." Nneka realized with terror that the mansion itself was alive with the curse. Obinna's mind was gone. The spirits had taken their revenge, and the forbidden room, it had opened something eternal, something unstoppable. By morning, Obinna had collapsed in the lounge, trembling, eyes wide, unblinking. He was alive, but a shell of the man he had been. Nneka sat beside him, tears streaming. She understood then the warning of the native doctor. The day someone enters the room, madness or death will follow. There is no escape. Obina had survived physically, but his mind was forever lost. The mansion was no longer a home. It was a prison haunted by shadows and whispers. And as Nneka looked at the west wing door, slightly ajar, she knew one truth. The curse would never end. The spirits were patient, and the mansion would always hunger for the next soul, curious enough to enter. Nneka hugged herself, trembling. She had escaped the room once, but she could not escape the fear, the memory, the horror she had seen. And Obina would run mad forever, screaming into the shadows, trapped by a curse that could not be broken. The night stretched endlessly, and Nneka understood fully that some doors are meant to stay closed. Some secrets are meant to remain buried, and once broken, they will change lives forever. Obina was no longer the man Nneka had married. His eyes were wide, wild, and empty. His hands shook constantly. At night, he wandered the halls, muttering the names of his dead wives. Sometimes he would laugh, a broken, terrifying sound that echoed through the mansion. Other times, he would scream at shadows that no one else could see. Madness had consumed him completely. The mansion itself seemed alive. Doors opened by themselves. Mirrors reflected strange figures that vanished when she looked directly at them. Shadows moved across the walls, and the faint whisper of voices filled the air. Nneka had tried to leave, but something always drew her back. She could not abandon Obina completely, no matter how mad he had become. One evening, she decided to confront the West Wing again. She had to understand what she had unleashed. Lighting candles, she approached the forbidden door, her hands trembling. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, but she needed to face the truth. Obina appeared behind her, muttering incoherently. Don't go, they are waiting." His voice broke as he lunged at the door, but Nneka held his hands firmly. "We have to face this," she said softly. "We cannot let it destroy us completely." Inside, the room was as she had seen before. 5 beds, each holding the pale, lifeless figure of Obina's late wives. But now the air was thicker, colder. Shadows twisted unnaturally, and a low hum filled the room. Nneka could feel the spirits of the 5 women watching her, judging her. They did not speak, but their presence was terrifying. Obina fell to his knees, shaking violently. He screamed, "They are alive! They are everywhere! I told them not to enter! I warned them!" Nneka realized with a chill that there was no saving him. The curse had claimed him. He would never recover. His mind was lost to fear, guilt, and madness. He was trapped in a nightmare he could never escape. The 5 women rose slowly from their beds. Their faces were calm, but filled with judgment. They floated toward Obina, and he screamed, clutching at the floor, trying to escape. The mansion shook violently as if reacting to their presence. Nneka backed away, tears streaming down her face. She had survived the room once, but now she saw that survival came with a price. The spirits were not cruel. They were the consequence of his actions, the result of the forbidden secrets kept in that room. Obina collapsed, twitching and shaking, whispering names, crying and laughing at the same time. The mansion grew quiet again, but it was not peace. It was the calm of something eternal, something that would never end. Nneka approached cautiously. She realized the truth. Wealth, power, love, none of it mattered. The curse had taken everything that truly belonged to Obina, leaving only madness. The spirits of his dead wives were forever bound to the mansion, and the forbidden room would never be empty. By morning, Obina lay still, trembling, eyes unseeing. Nneka sat beside him, understanding that the curse had fulfilled its morning. He had survived physically, but his mind, his life, his sanity, all were gone. The mansion, the room, and the spirits were eternal. Nneka left the West Wing shaking. She had survived, but the fear, the horror, the memory, these would stay with her forever. She hugged herself, realizing the lesson she could not ignore. Some doors are never meant to be opened. Some secrets are never meant to be disturbed. Ignoring warnings can destroy lives, break minds, and leave a lasting curse that no wealth, love, or power can undo. The mansion stood in silence, but it was a silence full of waiting. The curse had begun the day Neka entered the room, and it would never end. Obina's mind was lost forever, and the mansion, the room, and the spirits would remain patient.